Hello, everyone. Happy to see you here. It's Friday. We're really happy to be with you all. We hope you had a really great week learning and being inspired by all those great leaders as part of the SDG Summit. First, I would like to thank all the team of CSR Europe for organizing such a great event and convening together so many different type of stakeholders, policymakers, companies, all of us, so that we can take the time to discuss, be inspired, and define what are the next steps to collaborate together towards achieving the SDGs. We have an hour and a half together, and we're very excited to have a really great lineup of speakers to talk together on the key success factors to effectively contribute to the SDGs as a company. My name is Neila. I'm part of Blab Europe, and I will be guiding you toward that throughout this conversation together with our speakers. We will start with just a short overview of how the SDGs are being achieved today and how companies are playing a role in that. And then we'll be talking about two main companies, pioneers, illustrating their journey on how they're incorporating the SDGs within their core strategy. And after that, we will have two more great leaders joining us. But we'll be explaining, we'll have a dialogue, and we'll be able to dive into key factors on giving you elements so it can be useful for you and you can bring it back home to implement and also contribute at your level to achieve the SDGs. First, before we start talking about the content itself, what I'm suggesting for you is really to set the scene and to understand that this is a conversation, and we hope that you will be part of a conversation together with us. We're all sitting in our different places and homes and talking throughout the screen, but it's also linking all together. So we're leaving a space for you within the chat to ask questions and react. But we will also have a few surprises for you so that you would be able to share elements with polls and interactions so that you can be part of that conversation that we're having all together. The idea is really for us to spend this time so that it can be useful for you. So please make the best use of that session and let's keep it dynamic so that you can be part of that. So, because I was talking about interacting, what I'm proposing is let's start already sharing your opinion. We have a small poll that you will be able to see in the chat. So please do click on the link that you will see, the WooClap link, and start answering the first question, that is, are the SDGs used in your business? And if so, which SDGs do you contribute to? We will see the results later. And please do not hesitate also to share the words about this session, whether on CSR Europe or B Corp Europe, Blab Europe channels on LinkedIn, Twitter. The idea is really to spread the word, and let's really be vocal about the importance of contributing to the SDGs and the impact that we're having. So as I was saying earlier, my name is Neila Benamara, and I'm the SDG Program Manager at Blab Europe and also caring for the UK. I'm moderating this session, and before we get into the main content, I would like just to show you a little bit and explain what Blab Europe is doing. Some of you may already be familiar with this NGO, but it's called Blab, and what we're doing within that organization is that we're striving through a vision for an inclusive, equitable, and regenerative economic system for all people and the planet. And we're doing that by developing tools, communities, building and influencing policies so that we can have better system that is working both in terms of culture, behavior, and structure together to build that type of economic system. We also have, maybe some of you are more familiar with the B Corp certification. We have a community of more than 3,500 certified B Corps all around the world, and 10,000 benefit corporations worldwide, which is, for some of you maybe not familiar with this legal status, don't hesitate to research on that type of stakeholder governance. We have also more than 100,000 users of the different tools that we have, especially the BIA, and partners all around the world. And the reason that we're talking today is that we strongly believe that in order to build that economic system that will be equitable for all, then we also need to collaborate all together towards a common direction. And that's where the SDGs stand out. And I believe because you're here already today and you've attended all the sessions of this great event, you're already familiar with the SDGs. So we're not here to, again, explain further, but rather what we thought was giving you some insights so that we can go beyond the awareness and go take action so that we can get closer to achieving those goals. Maybe just a few facts if you didn't know that the SDGs are actually the result of a very collaborative process to define them, not only with institutions, but also with the involvement of businesses and other type of sectors. So right from the beginning where it was defined, it was already translating a collaborative mindset. It was also defined for all, not just for certain countries or developed, undeveloped, or any sectors. They were really defined with this idea of being inclusive. And the last aspect are that the SDGs are all interconnected as part of a holistic perspective. As they are representing the type of problems that we're addressing, they're also themselves being very holistic. Maybe you will be aware also that some reports exist, and understanding what is the vision today, where do we stand in terms of achieving those goals. I would gladly refer you to the Sustainable Development Report in 2020 that was released by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and that is developing an SDG index, trying to assess what are the progress and how we're measuring the actions that we're doing towards those goals. And in the summary from that report, we can see that a lot of progress has been made on various SDGs, and again, referring to the report itself to see all the details. But what we wanted to outline was in particular that with the COVID-19 crisis, we had negative impacts on some SDGs, and in particular, it was identified on the SDG number 1, 2, 3, 8, and 10, linked to, of course, the reduction of jobs, all the health and sanitation crisis, and of course the under consequences of the people that fell back into extreme poverty are statements that we can already see today. And we may have other negative impact that we may not be aware of yet. But that crisis has outlined the flaws in our system and showing that more than ever, it's actually important for us to be collaborative in how we're going to address those goals in order to catch up on those aspects and to support each other to go towards that common goal. What can be seen also is that the top 15 countries in this 2020 SDG index are all in Europe. Yes, Europe is doing very well in terms of achieving the SDGs, but again, another aspect to take into account is that the international spillovers are also less encouraging, and Europe is not doing so far good. What do we call international spillovers? Those are all the negative and unintended negative impact that we can have outside of our own countries, whether we're talking about the supply chain or any other type of effects that our actions in our countries are having on other countries. So that is showing how important it is when trying to contribute to the SDGs to take a holistic approach. So we're doing it not just on the specific scope, but understanding that we are part of a system and that we have to take into account all the elements of a system, the positive impact and the negative impacts, our scope, but also the consequences on the other elements of a system. That's what makes it more complicated to contribute it, but that's also one of the key success factors to be able to make sure that we're truly contributing. Now what I'm suggesting would be to try to see what you have shared with us. So we will be watching your results. Which I do not see yet, but I would suggest to go forward. And how the companies are contributing today, what we've noticed is that, well, there is an increasing awareness that we all have a role to play for achieving those SDGs, not only governments, but every single one of us. And the companies have understood that and have been interested in taking action already starting getting interested in it way few years ago, way before the COVID-19 crisis. We've noticed, and those are numbers dating from 2018 on the left side, you can see that more companies are mentioning the SDGs in their sustainability reports and have identified priority SDGs, but only few of them have identified KPIs in order to really be able to take action and integrate those SDGs into their core business model. We also noticed, and that is a report that is dated from this year in the UN Global Compact Network, that only 46% of the SDGs, of the companies have embedded the SDGs into their core strategy. And only 57% of them are measuring the impact of their own operations. Then we also see in terms of scope that only 10% are taking into account the product use, the life cycle products, into the way that may measure the impacts. So we can see that there is a growing interest, but still maybe something are missing, some tools or some elements, and we need to better direct our efforts so that we can take action and make sure that the impact will be better. The main challenges that we had identified from the companies we're interacting with are mostly how to understand the SDGs to translate it into a business context, how to measure that SDG contribution, how to take a holistic approach when we're just a company, and how to also fight against what we call impact washing to make sure that the impact that we're having is truly positive and legitimate, and that we do have this understanding comprehensive approach, but also how to embark all the stakeholders within that journey. So in summary, the question is how to make sure that we all effectively contribute to the SDGs. At Blab Europe, we started thinking about that and answering that questions. We partnered with the UNGC in 2018 and released this year a tool that is called the SDG Action Manager, that is translating the SDGs into company concrete measures. We also have developed a whole program in order to really develop more and more resources for companies to understand how can they do to contribute to those goals. And today we're here together with you and very proud to show you and to share testimonials of companies that have very diverse approaches, very diverse sectors and size, so that hopefully you can get some insights that will be useful for you to also contribute to that, to those SDGs. So I'm happy to present today both really great women that are spending their life and their daily all their days to do that exactly in their company. So we have Bérangère Margarinos Rucha, that is the Chief Sustainability Officer at Firmenich, and Hélène Grundy, that is a Sustainability Specialist at Hitachi. So we will first start hearing from the story of Hélène at Hitachi and the SDGs, and how Hitachi, which is such a complex organization that you have, I guess, already heard about, but the whole journey that it takes for such a complex organization to integrate the SDGs into their core operations, and this being driven by Hélène herself having all the experience that she has in sustainability to bring that change within that organization. Hélène, do you mind telling us a bit more about this journey that you have been conducting in Hitachi?
No, hi, afternoon, and thank you, Naila. I'd like to just start by saying, you know, we're really pleased and would like to thank you for inviting Hitachi to be part of this great summit. And, you know, the presentations that we've heard over the week have been both inspiring and engaging, and it is fantastic to be part of that. So thank you. And we're really pleased to be able to share, I guess, our approach to the SDGs and how we've integrated them within Hitachi. Though I think it's important to say we are still on that journey, and you know, we still have much to do, learning as we go. But it's been a journey that we are, you know, taking on, and it is absolutely central to the way Hitachi operates. So if we start, I think from a Hitachi perspective, it's really important to understand both our history, and that's so important to the developing and the development of our culture in Hitachi, which also hugely influences both our future and our approach to the SDGs. So Hitachi started out 110 years ago in a small, humble repair shop in Ibaraki in Japan. And what's really important is that our mission that has been around and was established by our founder, Namahei Odara, back in 1910 is still with us today. And the reason that's important for us is because the mission he put in place was to contribute to society through the development of superior original technology and products. And so what you see is right from the start, Hitachi had society at the centre and forefront of our business activities. So it's been there right since the start of Hitachi. And why that's important is because it's built a culture within our companies, within our business, that really puts the society at the centre of what we do. And it hasn't changed over the 110 years that we've been operating. It's still as important today as it was 110 years ago. And what I really like when I joined Hitachi is if you speak to any employee in Hitachi, they know that that mission has been around since our founding, and they completely understand it, and that drives our culture. So with over 300,000 employees globally, it's really created, I guess, a culture of pride and support and also collaboration to come together, but with a culture that drives our business and also aligns so well to the ambition of the SDGs. So I think for us, understanding that culture and history is part of our drive, and shows that if you have the right culture within a company, then it really allows you to take great strides forward. And that's led us to where we are today, a very complex global conglomerate with business focus that brings both operational technology and IT together. And we really are in every sector. So we have, as you can see on the slide, kind of 5 key strands of mobility, smart life, industry, energy, and IT. And we really do touch on every sector, but that is focused around how we can build and increase social, environment, and economic value for our customers. And that's really, what is at the heart of Hitachi. And I think, that's one of the key points that I would like, to highlight today, is that in building that culture within an organization, then that really is a key driver to integrating the SDGs. If we could go to the next slide. So in terms of just trying to explain a little bit about what we've done, as Naila pointed out, Hitachi is a hugely complex organization. We've got over 815 companies globally. And so trying to take the SDGs and look at how we could actually build those into the business strategy and do that in a way that's meaningful for every employee and business group, but without diluting the message or the sense of guidance and direction that strategy gives, was a challenge for us, no doubt. So I think our approach has always been top down, but also bottom up. And we've been lucky, and we are lucky in Hitachi, that we've always had strong messages of support and strong support in terms of the direction of the business from our president, Higashihara-san. So when the SDGs, when we were looking at how do we implement these, how do we build these into our sustainability activities, what does this mean for Hitachi? We started by going out to all the business groups. We wanted to get everyone involved. This was a journey that we wanted to take everybody on. And we got every business to consider the SDGs, look at the goals, look at what it meant for them, and ask them to identify those that were most critical and key to them. Not just in terms of where they could deliver business opportunity, but also where they impacted on us as a business. And again, I think that was really important, that this was not just a strategy that was determined in our headquarters at a corporate level. This was a strategy that we wanted to put in place across the business so everyone had buy-in. And we brought all that together. And in the end, we came out with 5 SDGs, which you can see in the middle of the slide there, which we linked to our business strategy. and then another 6 SDGs that we felt linked to our corporate commitment to society. And those 6 SDGs also have a huge impact on us in the long term. Whereas the business SDGs that we've identified are those where we really feel we, through our business, can have an impact and deliver products or services that can help achieve those SDGs. And then the next stage we took was, okay, well, that's great, but it needs to be part of our business. So in our 2021 midterm management plan, which is a 3-year business plan and is very typical of Japanese companies, they were placed right at the goal and center of that plan. And so we were looking at, right, how do we then take the SDGs and create value? And so the environment, social and economic value were placed at the very center of the business planning process and linked very much to the 5 business sectors that we have. And so then we really need to think about, okay, we had this plan, but then we need a program in place to deliver that plan. And I guess that's really then some of the journey that we've been on, and I'd like to share with you, because I think it talks about some of the different programs that we've put in place. As I say, you know, it's been so important for us to communicate and engage. And I use both those terms because actually the communication is important, but it tends to be one direction. And actually what we want is dialogue. We want to engage and hear from not just employees and our business groups, but external stakeholders, and recognize actually that we can learn. There is much that we can learn from other business organizations, NGOs, academics. And so really we have held a whole host of different programs that we have in place, from stakeholder dialogues through to workshops internally to really understand actually, you know, what are the questions we need to be asking, and how do we make the changes that we need to do to really, as a sector and as a private organisation, help that shift and that systemic shift towards achieving the SDGs. And some of the topics that we've covered are, you know, are wide. So we did actually engage a stakeholder dialogue on our SDG strategy, but we've also engaged around our human rights policy, future of work. And so we've really looked at implementing a huge number of programs to deliver our strategy. And then as we go forwards, we're also beginning to look at, you know, how do we tie that into executive and employee remuneration? And as Neela said, how do we begin to put a value on that impact? And really, these are some of the crunch points that we as an organisation are really trying to drive now. So I think in summary, what I can say is absolutely top support from our management has been critical, but also making sure a collaborative corporate culture driven by our mission has really added a huge amount of value to us implementing and integrating the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Helen, for that very comprehensive and insightful journey and sharing all those really great elements. And I hope that others will also learn from that. Do not hesitate if you want to have any question for Helen and the journey at Hitachi, to share your question within the chat. It's very interesting to see how Hitachi has not only defined SDGs and integrated into their business strategies, but also linked to that, what Helen was talking, corporate commitments, because it's linked to the vision that Hitachi within is embedded with the culture has defined. Thank you so much for sharing that. What I would suggest is now to hear the story of Barry, that actually has a long time history with and legacy with the SDGs themselves we're carrying other hats. So please, Barry, tell us a bit more about the story at Firmenich, but also a bit more about your personal story when the link with the SDGs.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Neela. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. great panel. I think the diversity of companies and experience on the panel will certainly make it a great learning experience for you this afternoon. I'm Barry, I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer at Firmenich. I've been 10 years in the company driving sustainability transformation. Before joining Firmenich, I was working for the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, part of the Gates Foundation. But before that, I was working for the United Nations for around 10 years, part of the team who created and launched and took over the world, the UN Global Compact. And as Nela said, in 2014 in Switzerland, Firmenich was part of the dialogue in the creation of the SDGs with the Swiss ambassador to the SDG. And that was very interesting to have these dialogue sessions between companies, NGOs, and the Swiss government. So I'll tell you, next slide, Nela, a little bit the Firmenich story. We, this year, are celebrating 125 years of existence at Firmenich. We are a 100% family-owned company, and that certainly makes a great difference when you look at driving a business for good. You see here that we are a company very much driven by science. We had a Nobel Prize in chemistry in the 30s. We are basically the Intel of taste and smell in the world. So we reach around 4 billion consumers a day, excuse me. Through all the brands you've been using from this morning to this evening, from the supermarket to luxury brands in fine fragrance. So we really have a huge outreach in everybody's life from the top to the base of the pyramid, which comes with a responsibility, obviously, making sure that flavors don't just taste good, but that they also deliver nutrition solution, that perfumes not only, you know, smell good and bring you back to memories, but also help drive behavior change in people washing their hands more or using toilets more, for instance, in developing country. So Firmenich is an amazing company. We've been in our sustainability journey for decades now. The Firmenich family itself have been very engaged as shareholders, and it's been really an exciting journey. Next slide, please, Nela. And the way we've been constructing our journey into the SDG is, you know, really looking at an integration that, first of all, as one of our top managers would say, it takes a village, because you certainly don't do that alone as the Chief Sustainability Officer or as the sustainability team for that matter. This is really the engagement of the entire company, from our sourcing people to our scientists to our HR people to our creation people, and so on and so forth, all the way to all the workers in our factories that, especially now in this COVID period, are taking, you know, a stand, making sure we have business continuity in the factory, delivering, because Firmenich in most of the countries where we operate, if not all of them, has been identified as a company that delivers necessary goods for nutrition and hygiene. We've been in March, for instance, turning around our factory in Geneva to deliver sanitizer gel to the hospital in Geneva, and then we went on doing it in the US and in Asia as well. So it's a DNA, it's an history, and we've done it through making sure we would measure our performance and report, so creating indicators since the late 90s. And we are today, as we speak, developing our new indicators that will be launched in February 2021. We have done during the confinement in March and April, we have embarked in doing the SDG Action Manager. That was quite interesting. You know, at first we thought, okay, a little bit crazy. We had developed this 4,000 line Excel sheet to answer all the questions. We had like 30 colleagues involved, but it happened to be an extremely motivating exercise for many colleagues to be involved, to answer the questionnaire. Great learning, helped us in the journey now designing our new indicators in really having a very holistic approach and reconsidering the SDGs after having worked on them for 5 years already, was really saying, well, okay, now it's the decade of action, as the UN mentioned. What else do we have to do? And, you know, when you were speaking, Nela, I was taking notes, and I think, you know, we have this language where we keep saying we contribute to the SDGs. Certainly, we do contribute. But for all of you on the line today, I think it's critical to turn the narrative around a little bit and understanding that the contribution is a two-way street. Because the SDGs help business resilience. We don't just help the SDGs or contribute to the SDGs. They do contribute to our business success. They contribute to the resilience of a company against climate change, against the COVID situation right now. They also help you innovate. They help you manage your risk differently. They help you motivate your teams differently. So I think, you know, contributing to the SDGs is certainly self-serving as well, and should be seen as a business case and not just doing something nice for the outside world. We've been also very much integrating the SDGs in our science, as you can see on this slide, making sure we would work on green chemistry, for instance, for a very long time, renewable materials, biodegradable materials, and the rest of it. Next slide, you will see that we have been engaging in this journey through our own culture of care, a culture where sustainability is at the heart of our fundamentals. We have created them with the Firmenich family back in the 70s, and they've been refreshed constantly. But this vision that our long-term success depends on sustainability, on the Sustainable Development Goals, is fundamental. Next one. So very nice question in the meantime on the list. No, Firmenich is not yet B Corp certified. We have just started our journey in the summer, I would say June, July. And we are now in our scoping phase. We are getting to learn, you know, about the B Corp world, and we're super excited about it. And I think our inclusive capitalism model is very much aligned with the B Corp vision. Our CEO has been, Gilbert Agostin, really has been instrumental in shaping this vision of a capitalism that is transforming, is answering the needs not only of shareholders, but also of stakeholders around our company, around our operations everywhere in the world. It's a passion for us. To give you an example, our CEO keeps on teaching in leading business schools. He was the other night, 10 p.m. Geneva time, driving a online session for MBA students at Wharton University. And I think that's critical to make sure that we embark young people in this vision in business schools from the beginning. Next slide is really beyond the business model and how we create things with our stakeholders. We have developed a culture at Firmenich of engagement and partnering for, I would say, 10 years, working with NGOs, working with governments. And, you know, maybe after this session, I'll get another range of LinkedIn messages or emails saying, I'm an NGO, I want to work with you. I get that all the time. We're very strict. We're really making sure that our partnerships are aligned with what we want to deliver in terms of our SDGs impacts. We want to make sure they are linked to our material issues, that we don't go into philanthropy, we don't go into nice to have, but then we don't transform our own business. So for us, those partnerships are, you know, keeping us challenged every day, making sure that we go above and beyond. They are a little bit like a sounding board to us. And the new one being, of course, Blab Switzerland and Europe, with whom we are embarking in our B Corp certification journey. So partnership, part of the integration. And then in the next slide, thank you, just summarizing for you our new strategic framework. around business, inclusive business models, business for good. We are going to develop KPIs and goals around climate change, nature, and people. For us, this is summarizing the SDGs. This is summarizing where we want to go as a business, making sure that we're acting on climate. And I think in the current COVID situation, we should not forget that the crisis beyond COVID, the long-term crisis is climate change, and we keep on experiencing that constantly. Respecting nature, the same. We've seen the connection between loss of biodiversity and the increase of pandemics. So the fundamental importance of protecting nature to protect our health. And people really looking at human rights in our supply chain, all the way to human rights in our offices and factories, but also in terms of our impact on consumers. Are we delivering what consumers are expecting from nutrition, from hygiene point of view, but also making sure that, you know, we drive health, also mental health, by the way. You know, very interesting work that neuroscience is delivering around the impact of perfume on positive emotions. And when you are in a lockdown, like my colleagues are from yesterday in France, being connected back to your emotions, to olfactive preferences and memories is very important. I'll summarize in my last slide some of the takeaway messages and lessons learned. So as I said, we worked on the SDGs for a long time now, but we thought that challenging ourselves with the SDG Action Manager was a way to integrate even more what we have done on the SDGs. It's so holistic, it's so extensive. We had people from facility management all the way to people working on waste management, HR directors, you know, our marketing people, our legal teams. Everybody went on the SDG Action Manager to really look at what was expected from them. I think also the fact that Firmenich has created the position of Chief Sustainability Officer, which I'm very grateful and proud to have been led for the past 6 months almost. I said I was 10 years in the company, but step by step, my role evolved. I think a CSO role is very critical in terms of integrating sustainability at the C-suite level, decision-making, investment decisions. If you look at recent Firmenich acquisitions, they're very much driven also by the fact that we want to be a responsible company, our vision being to be the most responsible company for the world, not just in the world. To do that, you cannot work alone, as I said. It's very necessary to train colleagues. We have trained them on the UN Global Compact SDG online course, for instance. People loved it. They learned a lot. We do a lot of training, very specific to teams. Then measuring performance, what get measured, get done. And then finally, really, working with others. I think no company can solve the SDGs alone. You have to work through your industry, working with your competitors, working with your customers, your suppliers. And I think that's what the other speaker might also point out this afternoon. So Nela, thank you so much. Very happy to share this journey with you. We still have a long way. We'll keep learning every day. And a session like this afternoon is a great opportunity to keep doing that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Barry, for that also very extensive and comprehensive testimonial on how sustainability and the SDGs are translated within Firmenich. It's so interesting that those two companies are very different and very different approaches, but having in common that culture and that care for sustainability to be integrated at the core, and to see also all the intention and the effort that are being made behind partnerships and how it's declined and adapted at the different layers of a company. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I do hope it is helpful for everyone else that is hearing us to be able to follow the lead and also adapt to their own approach, how they would be able to contributing, as you said, two ways, both them contributing for the SDGs, but also because it will benefit for them on the longer term. What I would suggest, maybe to just give you a few insights on the poll that you have already started to answer. So we were asking you what were the SDGs that you were contributing to, and the answers, the SDGs that you are most contributing to within the audience are the SDG number 12, linked to responsible consumption and production, number 8, linked to decent economic growth, number 13, linked to climate change, and number 17, linked to partnerships of a goal. So it's very interesting to see that the number 12 and 8 are the ones that are most intuitively linked to companies, but also number 13, because there is an increased awareness about all the issues that we have with the current crisis because of climate change. So very happy to see that you also among the audience are also contributing to those. And the number 17, as we all agree, since that is also the theme of that event, since we're all talking about not just competing for financial profits, but how we can cooperate so that we can have better value for society on top of all the performance that are expected from a company. And if we do not have any other question, or do we have any question? I would not be able to say it that way. So what I would suggest is to kind of present actually the other speakers that are joining us as of today. And I'm very happy to present today as well Enzo and Noemi. Enzo is the Chief Evangelist at Tony's Chocolonely. Noemi is the Shared Value and Sustainability Specialist at Chiesi Group. Both are coming from B Corps. Those are companies that have embedded also sustainability at the core and have adopted a stakeholder type of governance. We're very happy to have both of you among with us. And before we start this dialogue with the four of you, may I invite each one of you to actually present yourself and how does sustainability translate into your own company? If we can start with Enzo.
Sure, hi, great to be here today in this impressive panel. I'm Enzo, the Choco Evangelist, or the Chief Evangelist of, I would say by now, a formerly small Dutch chocolate company called Tony's Chocolonely. And Tony's is a company that was launched about 15 years ago when a couple of Dutch journalists saw a tiny article in a newspaper on page 12 that was talking about child slaves being traded in Mali for the cocoa industry, and they were shocked. They were like, how can this not be front page news? And how come nobody knows about this when you eat chocolate on just about a daily basis, I would say, especially in Holland. And so they started investigating, and long story short, they wanted to get a lot more awareness on the subject. So they started their own little chocolate company called Tony's Chocolonely for our lonely battle in the chocolate industry, hence the unpronounceable brand name that we still go by today. And for the last 15 years, we've worked hard to eradicate child labor from the value chain of cocoa, and not just our chocolate, I would say, but working hard to make sure that all chocolate worldwide becomes 100% slave-free. And how do we do that? It's by creating awareness amongst consumers, which is really the bottom-up approach, but also amongst retailers about the bitter reality that still exists in the world of cocoa today. It's by becoming a chocolate company ourselves and thereby showing the chocolate industry from within how we think chocolate can be made in a different way, in a more social way, in a more sustainable way. In our opinion, simply in a better way, by really taking your responsibility for your complete value chain, so bean to bar, as we say. We pay a higher price to the farmers that deliver our cocoa beans. So on top of the farm gate price, we pay the fair trade premium. And on top of that, we also pay an additional Tony's premium to get these farmers to a proper living income, which you can debate for hours, but I have about 50 seconds left. So living income for us really means that you're able to have a roof over your head, able to feed your family, able to send your kids to school, which is essential for us. And hopefully also invest a little bit in a positive spiral upwards for these farmers in Western Africa. And the last step in our strategy as a company is to inspire other organizations to also take their responsibility when it comes to respecting human rights in their value chains. So we really want to inspire others to do what we do. So I would say maybe we're one of the few companies who really wants to get rid of the U in USP. We don't want to be unique in what we're doing. We want everybody to start doing what we're doing. And then we can differentiate based on taste and packaging or marketing, but not based on basic human rights. So that is what we do. And we have grown to become strangely successful. Because I would not say that we're a global brand, but I would almost say that we're a globally available brand, with our chocolate being available now in Scandinavia, Holland, Belgium, Germany, France, UK, US, and we launched in Japan last week. We launched in New Zealand a couple of weeks ago. So that is great news, because it's not about us becoming a global brand. It's about us hopefully helping to form a global movement of change within the cocoa industry. Because it's ridiculous, let's put it bluntly, it's ridiculous that there would still be any form of modern slavery in any product that we would buy on shelves in a supermarket or anywhere else. So that is what Tony's Chocolate Only does. And if you were to ask me, so what do you do about sustainability? I would say, it's very hard often for us to answer those kinds of questions, because we never intended to become a chocolate company. We just wanted to change something in the world. So I could almost say it's easy for us, because we never knew any different life than the way we do it.
Thank you, Enzo. Indeed, that's a very nice way of phrasing it, that actually the business itself is not the end goal, but the sustainability itself is the end goal. And chocolate is a way to achieve that value that you're bringing to society by
You're spot on. We always say financial success is not an end goal, and it shouldn't be an end goal for companies. It should be a means towards a goal. The goal is to change something in the world with the good that you're doing financially.
Thank you. That's very inspiring, and I do hope that also inspires others. I personally also eat Tony's Chocolate Only chocolate, especially because I'm based also in the Netherlands, but I didn't even know that you were also... See, we have chocolate. That's unfortunate that we cannot meet face to face, because then all the speakers and maybe also the audience would have been able to taste it at the moment. But we will make it with that.
Coming to a store near you, I would say, to everybody, wherever you are in the world.
Even in Japan. Thank
you,
Enzo. May I also invite Noemi from Chiesi to also present herself and share how sustainability translates into Chiesi, which different sector, different country. We're going to Italy. We're talking about pharmaceutical group. Noemi, can you let us know more about how it does translate into Chiesi?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Nila. I really thank you for inviting me in this nice discussion. I'm Noemi, and I work in the Shared Value and Sustainability Department of Chiesi Group. As you said, Chiesi is a pharmaceutical company based in Parma, Italy, since 1935. And we work in research and development, and we are directly present with 29 affiliates around the world. At the end of 2018, we became a benefit corporation, therefore changing our legal status as a double-purpose company. And in 2019, we became a benefit corporation. If I have to tell you about the journey that we undertook towards sustainability, the first thing we always like to highlight and also to remind ourselves is that we didn't start from zero, because our mission has always been that of improving the quality of human life, and so it really embeds in itself the creation of positive value. But anyway, I have to say that in the last few years, sustainability really was an opportunity for us to strengthen and to value this purpose in a different way. So when I think about sustainability at Chiesi, really many topics comes to my mind, such as embedding sustainability into business strategy, sustainability reporting, sustainability education, B Corp certification, of course. But I have to say that a common ground to all these topics is we can identify common ground in the concept of double purpose, which then means the creation of shared value, and so having a positive impact both on the society, the environment, and all our stakeholders, but also at the same time on a positive impact for the growth of our company. So that's really for us the preliminary mindset that we have in mind, and that really was key for us in order to implement our sustainability strategy. And another key concept that is, of course, strictly connected to the concept of double purpose is that of impact. This is actually also the reason why we firstly approached the impact assessment, because in our opinion, really the first step, the first concrete step should have been that of measuring and assessing our impact at 360 degrees, in order to understand, of course, to identify also internal best practices, and to understand that economic performance is not really enough to represent the comprehensive performance of a company, but also especially to identify improvement areas. And that's really, in our opinion, the only way to be effective in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So just to summarize, the concept, the mindset of double purpose, and the and planning and measuring according to the awareness we have on our impact.
Thank you so much, Noemi. That's also very interesting to see, again, that common threads. We all have actually different perspectives and approaches, but you all have in common that there is this mindset of collaboration and this care for sustainability to really add value to society in everything you're doing. We heard from Helen how this culture is coming mostly from the Japanese culture that is embedded within the Hitachi history and legacy. We've heard from also from Barry how it's also linked to the familial culture and the care that it is to care for all the stakeholders, and but also for the long-term benefits on the business itself, on this two-way type of contribution. From Inzo, how their first intention was actually to contribute to society and to fight against all those issues that we have not only within the company, but beyond the company scope in the whole supply chain to fight against slavery. And from you, Noemi, also hearing about how Chiesi cares as well, on top of being a pharmaceutical company that is directly linked in this business model to indeed a health, which is associated, of course, to a stakeholder perspective, but taking that to the heart and applying it in everything you're doing and all the activities, whether we're talking about internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. So thank you so much. And I would like to, well, we kind of started already the discussion, of course, but to better understand and give more elements to the audience, you've already started, and I've summed up a little bit, shared and distilled in everything you've been saying, so many different success factors that I hope the audience is grasping and taking note of so that they can apply it. I would phrase my question by asking each one of you, if you had to give an advice to a company that is maybe struggling or just started on the journey, what would be for you this enabling key factor that you think that would really help to untangle and unpack a company that is struggling, but is less mature in terms of sustainability and embedding into a strategy? How could they do to really contribute to the SDGs? If I ask, for example, Barry to start by giving us a little advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I think all of a sudden, Nela, everything makes sense when you link the SDGs to your business objectives. You know, if you start rethinking about what's the purpose of my product or my service, who I want to impact positively. If you do that exercise, looking at who you are today and who do you want to be in 10 years, all of a sudden you start seeing the SDGs being a support along this pathway. So to me, it has to start with your core products, your core mission. If you do it on the side, thinking, well, okay, I'm just going to look at the SDGs in terms of how I work with communities outside my company, you're missing the point. And you will never be able to integrate really. And what I was saying at the beginning, that the SDGs can help you manage your risk, manage your innovation, and drive the motivation of your people. That would happen only if this is linked to your product and services.
Thank you, Barry. Indeed, very interesting. And because it is sometimes an idea that we hear that people think about the SDGs for international development and to help in other communities, but we do have things also to do in our side. And within the way that we organize our own internal operations within the company, already contributing at local level, but also extended level on the whole supply chain. And that complexity can be maybe difficult to address, but having the right tools and approach and doing it, I guess, methodologically, the way that you have shared with Firmenich, Hitachi, and also the other great examples that we've heard, I do hope can inspire others. May I also, actually, I forgot to include the audience in the question, but please, for the audience that is hearing us, do not hesitate to also share your own success factors in the chat, so then we can also build up on that and react to what you're sharing. What are your success factors to contribute to the SDGs? And while you are answering in the chat, you will see a WooClap link. I will ask now Helen to share this advice that you would give to a company, how to start right and to be able to contribute to the SDGs.
Yeah, thank you. I think, I can't disagree, and I have to totally agree with everything that's already been said. And absolutely, it can't be an add-on, because ultimately it's not driving anything within the business. So yeah, it absolutely has to be linked to the business strategy and where that's heading. And I think, as we've seen in Hitachi, that's about engaging across our employee base, whether that's senior management, it's or whether that's people at all levels, because everyone's got to understand as well what's their role in that. What does this mean for me, and what can I do to drive this as well? So I think, yeah, it's about getting it at the heart of the business, getting it into your business strategy, and then really engaging. And like we said, that's not just about telling people, it's about taking them on that journey and getting them to engage in what you are doing. So, for instance, next week, we've got a set of workshops with our executive and senior managers in Europe. So we've got, I think, upwards of 90 managers attending those events. And that's very much about engaging them on what is the ambition, what do we want to do with this, and we're on this journey together. So I think it's about collaboration, engagement, and getting everyone on board.
Thank you, Helen. That's also very useful to understand, and reiterating indeed on those examples and taking the concept behind those success that you're having and how you're building up the integration of the SDGs within your strategy. May I ask also the opinion, Inzo or Noemi? Let's hear Inzo. Do you agree with what have been said? Would you have any other type of advice to give to a company that didn't define right from the start to enable to fight against slavery? What would you give to a company that is different?
You know what I think? I think for some strange reason, within a couple of generations, financial success has become such an end goal. Whilst financial success should be a means towards a goal. In our case, 100% slave-free chocolate. But I think that any company that is financially successful has a moral obligation to do something right to the planet and the society it operates in and on. So that's why I oppose the term social entrepreneurship, for example. I don't call ourselves a social enterprise. Why? Because I simply think that those entrepreneurs that don't take that moral obligation seriously are anti-social entrepreneurs. And we shouldn't be seeing them as the mainstream. We should be seeing companies that are doing something right as the new norm, as the new mainstream, and start seeing those companies on the outskirts of the mainstream. So that's important, I think, to realize. So, so my advice to any company embracing SDGs and sustainability strategies is to realize that you just have that moral obligation. I cannot see you operating in a 21st century capitalistic system without taking that moral obligation seriously.
Thank you, Inzo. What you're saying is actually, yes, even stronger, not just how do we integrate it, but then even going backwards, understanding why it is important and crucial for us to do it in the first place.
Well, it always strikes me as odd that I always get this question. So how do you balance, right, revenue, financial success with sustainability? I think success in this topic comes from realizing that those two things aren't two ends of one spectrum. It's not a paradox. You can actually combine them and do right whilst being financially successful. I think that makes a much greater impact. And I think there's only place in the economic system of, well, I was almost going to say the future, but I would say in the now, if you realize that.
Thank you, Inzo. And Noemi, would you want to add up to that? What would be the advice you would give?
Yeah, thank you, Nilas. If I should choose two keywords, I think that will be integration and measurement. I think that once again, the first step is that of really, as also Barry said, integrating concretely in the company's DNA is this concept, and not to consider them as a separate part. For example, we integrated them in our sustainability strategic processes. And we really use the SDGs as key inputs. And the second keyword, which is measurement, for example, for us it was very effective, the use of the SDG Action Manager tool this year, and because it really gave us the opportunity to measure our contribution to the SDGs. And at the beginning, we choose for our strategic plan 9 SDGs that we thought we could contribute the most to, but also thanks to the SDG Action Manager, we could have a more comprehensive view to understand our comprehensive impact on the SDGs, and we assessed on all of them. So really also in this case, integration into the company's DNA and measurement and understanding your impact on the SDGs.
Thank you. That's also very interesting. So again, this idea of integration that Barry was also mentioning, and Helen also pointed out that the stakeholder engagements, and very interesting the way you use the SDG Action Manager, because from what I understood, you were actually realized that you were contributing more on some SDGs that you had not prioritized as compared to some that you had prioritized. So it kind of gave you a different type of reading on the impact that your actions were having. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm checking what the audience is sharing also as a key success factor. So we had some key success factors, scientifically based improvement targets. So making sure that indeed it's something we haven't actually talked about. This idea, do you feel, but that's a good question. Do you feel that the targets that you have set today are ambitious enough to be able to achieve those goals? Maybe Barry, do you want to talk about this, and how do you set the targets in the first place?
Yeah. So as I said, we just completed a 5 years strategic cycle, 2015-2020, launching the new targets in February next year. So in the middle of doing that. So yeah, we felt our targets in the past 5 years, maybe they were not ambitious enough. Not the environmental targets. We've been working on science-based targets from the beginning, but more, for instance, target linked to biodiversity. We're very engaged in all the conversation around science-based targets on nature protection, biodiversity protection. Now, the tricky part for all of us, and if somebody on the chat or on the call has it done, please share it with me, is the social targets. It's not easy. It's not easy to measure exactly what social impact you are looking at. And I'm a social scientist. I have a PhD in international relations. I studied social science. I worked for Gates and the UN, measuring impact all the time. I can tell you, first of all, it's very expensive. I remember at the Gates Foundation, we were probably investing around 30% of all budgets in monitoring and evaluation. And then how do you make sure that the impact you're measuring is really due to your investment, your work? You know, there's a lot of things in the system. There's a lot of contribution coming from other companies, from the government, from NGOs. You cannot just say, you know, I improve the life of X number of people, improve education, improve health. So that space of social measurement needs to be developed fast in the coming years, so we increase our impact.
Thank you, Barry. And indeed, I do hope that someone gives us an answer on how can we have science-based targets for social type of KPIs, not just a climate one, because we're keen on doing it. It is something that we still need to figure out and to measure and better assess in the future. Does any other of you want also to share how you define your own targets, do you feel that they are ambitious enough? Noemi, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, thank you, Nila. Yes, I think, and also maybe partially answering to a question that came up in the chat, how to change things exponentially. I think that really the climate issue is really a priority right now, and we are really aware also in this kind of emergency how we are dependent by nature. And on this topic, we last year we launched a global challenge for us that is the goal of becoming carbon neutral by 2035. In particular, achieving carbon neutrality for Scope 1 and 2 by 2030, and also for Scope 3 by 2035. And I think that's really something that we are really proud of. This is really a challenge for us because it's really not so easy, and it's also for us a way. I mean, the social impact for us, it's really, of course, very important as a pharmaceutical company. But in this way, we are trying to do also much more, and really trying to embedding the claim of B Corps as we act as a force for good in doing something also, as you said before, on top of our own nature. And so this for us is really something that we consider very ambitious.
Thank you, Noemi. And I would like to read a comment from Andrea. Thank you for commenting, Andrea, and keeping you with us also, Noemi, because I think you will be able to build up on that. So Andrea is telling us that it's very important culture of awareness of what you do every day in your workplace, wondering how you can contribute. My suggestion for the company that really wants to contribute is to treat this awareness at all levels and for all the different generations of employees. Noemi, I was suggesting to keep you with us to answer that because I've heard about the We Act Day and all the initiatives that you had within Chiesi. Can you maybe illustrate how you do within Chiesi to do that exactly, deploy that culture of awareness at all levels?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yes, really, the engagement of the internal stakeholder was really key for us, and I have to say that the top management was already engaged, so it was really about engaging the whole company, which means almost 6,000 people around the world. And to do so, of course, at the beginning, we also launched some specific training courses dedicated to sustainability principles, to the SDGs, and to the activities that we were carrying on inside the company on sustainability. And one relevant action is exactly the We Act Day. We Act is our sustainability program, which stands for We Actively Care for Tomorrow. And that's an event that we, as a year, it can be 1 or more days, and we celebrate this event on the 25th of September, exactly to celebrate the launch of the anniversary of the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's really very, very engaging. We in last year, for example, we organized a real festival inside one of our facility in Italy, inviting also external stakeholders with speeches, with other colleagues illustrating the projects that we were implementing at the time with practical activities. And of course, we didn't give up this year, and we translated this event in an online event with a talk show format. And I have to say that this was challenging, but at the end it was really satisfying and really effective. And so it could seem banal, but dedicating a moment just to these topics, we'll see that it is really, really efficient.
It's interesting to see that you're dedicating into time to it as part of a training, and that every employee not only aware of it, but actually even more powerful and being empowered, because you mentioned during your festivals people presenting their own projects and also presenting the SDGs and why sustainability is important, which I feel in Firmenich is also something that is being done with champions that are being empowered as well. I see Barry nodding as well. I would like maybe to read now a comment from Eric that is saying that on my side, I really think good companies are doing right things. Main issues are it's not enough. Why I recommend to work differently to have exponential impacts. On my side, for my company, the Lounge Online, I built it around new collaborations between different profiles of companies partner. I think now the main point is how to do it now. Helen, do you want to build up on that comment and illustrate the type of partnerships and how you're building those partnerships?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, in responding as well to some of what Enzo said and that's been said in the chat, that absolutely, if we're going to make change, it has to be across systems. It has to be whole system change. That's the only way we're really going to see that scale of impact at the level of change that we need to meet the ambition of the SDGs. And I think that's something that Hitachi, does through the partnerships, because ultimately, as a single organization, and even one like Hitachi, where we have so many different businesses in different sectors, the reality is we do need to form those partners. We don't have the ability on our own to have those systemic changes. So I think a really good example of that with Hitachi is we recently had a project on the Isles of Scilly, which is a small island off the southwest of the UK. And there it was about how do we actually make change across the whole community. So with various different partners, the local council, local businesses, putting in place EV, using IoT, how does that make change across that whole community as a test case? And I think that's what we've got to do, and we've got to be able to move and also support, and see that there's a lot of great ideas coming from some of those smaller startup businesses. And how can we as a global business actually work with them to take those ideas, to take that innovative thinking that we're seeing, but have it with the support and the history and that comes with an organization such as Hitachi, and allow them to access some of those skills and big data sets, etc., that we have, and really begin to bring those partnerships together. So I think for me, it's absolutely right that Eric said we've got to start joining those dots, and we can't just see ourselves as a single company. We've got to think outside the box and start working in partnership, in collaboration, because that's the only way we're really going to ultimately make those changes.
Thank you, Helen, for illustrating that. Indeed, we can see that the mindset in Hitachi is not just about the responsibility that is extended beyond the company scope, but also the approach and the way you're addressing it also goes beyond the company approach by partnering. And that's a very good example of partnering with startups to help them with the strength and expertise that is already existing within Hitachi. So and then they can benefit from it, but also bring social positive impact on society. That's very interesting. And Inzo, would be very interesting also to hear your opinion about the question that Eric was mentioning, even though you indeed already answered partly in the chat, but what according to you are the elements that can help us to bring that level of system change that Helen was also mentioning? And maybe could you give us an example of how to be successful in building partnerships to do that?
Several parts of your question, though. But one, what Eric was touching upon, and what Helen also touched upon. I think seriously think, even though it's a cliche, but I think collaboration really is the new competition, and the only way to get out of the shithole that we put ourselves in within a couple of generations is to really work together as commercial enterprises to fix things. And in our case, that is also really collaborating directly with our competitors. So it's really working together with, say, a Nestle in the industry to get systems in place. For example, in our case with Nestle, to have these social measurement systems in place. In our case, the child labor monitoring and remediation system, which is essential. But the second part of your question is more, for example, what we do in really building long-term relationships with cooperatives on the ground in Ghana and Ivory Coast, showing that if you want to take responsibility for your full value chain, it doesn't stop at the world market where our competitors buy their cocoa beans. It's really by delving deeper into your value chain and building long-term relationships and fair relationships and entrepreneurial relationships, I would say, with the farmers and cooperatives in Western Africa, which is key, I think, for our success as well, to really involve them.
That's very interesting because you're mentioning indeed very different types of partnerships with the suppliers, but also with your competitors, showing and illustrating with the example that partnership can be with various different type of other organizations, even those that you would not think you would be able to partner in the first place. But
Nila, I would even consider our consumers, who aren't even our customers, right? Because it's the retailers that are our customers. But I think building long-term relationships with your consumers is also a form of really collaboration, because they form the bottom-up approach that needs to be happening at the same time.
That's a very interesting perspective, indeed, like collaboration in everything you're doing. And may I also ask you to elaborate a bit more on the advocacy side of what Tony Chocolonely is doing, because you're partnering also with other, not just with competitors, but other type of companies in the Netherlands, and I think also maybe in Europe, in order to drive further legal change.
Exactly. We've launched a petition, and everybody who's watching, please go to tonychocolonely.com/petition and form part of that movement. We want to gather 1 million signatures as soon as possible, because that puts you on the agenda in both the US, where we seriously need some change, but hopefully that's going to happen in a couple of days, and in the European Union and all individual member states, because I just find it ridiculous that it wouldn't be enforced by law, that there's right. Let me just ask a question. Would anybody find it normal that there's common things like chocolate on shelves in supermarkets where there's child slavery in producing that product? Everybody would obviously say, no, that's ridiculous. So why is that not enforced by law? Right? We think there should be a law in place that simply says that you can't have human rights violations in your value chain and prove that you don't have it from your side as an organization. So that is something we've launched last year, and earlier on, because I think that's what you're referring to. 2 years ago, there was a law in the Netherlands that needed to be passed, and then we partnered indeed with. We showed exactly that competitors can be collaborating in this. So we put 2 beer brands together. We joined together as a chocolate brand. We put 2 banks together and showed in a financial newspaper, listen, everybody wants this. Get the law through the system to make sure that there's no child slavery in your products.
Thank you.
Maybe, Nela, if I can just build on what Enzo was saying. So in Switzerland, we are quite complicated democratic system, but the Swiss people will be voting on such a law in 3 weeks. Perfect. So what's going to happen in Switzerland? It's called the Responsible Multinational Initiative, Responsible Business Initiative, RBI. I think you can find information in English if you Google it. And it's been like a 5 years journey and even more. So it's quite an interesting debate at the moment, but for sure in Switzerland, if this initiative is approved or rejected, even if it's rejected, we will still have a change in the law, especially on child labor. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, countries are coming.
Shit scared at the moment.
But countries are coming to this kind of policy transformation everywhere, and we have to do more. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
And that's great to see a momentum growing on that side. And maybe to also summarize some elements in everything that you've been saying to answer Eric's comments and how can we do to amplify and change, go to a system level. What I can see from all your answers are the fact that indeed you do not stay within just the company scope, but also change the structure itself on the legal framework in order to be able to become that type of doing business to become more mainstream, but also for the right regulations to be in place so that we can indeed have it imposed and make sure that the guardrails are implemented at the global level. You have also mentioned everything linked to collaboration, that's linked to the culture and the behavior of what we're doing. So what I see is that we all have a role to play. Inzo was talking partnerships with all different types of stakeholders. Us as citizens, we have a role to play with, by the way, we're spending our money, the companies that we're choosing to work with, by every decision when we vote, of course, in the political elections. We always have a role to play, whichever where we're sitting. Maybe Barry, since you were building up on what Inzo was saying, maybe could I also ask you to illustrate maybe an example of partnerships, since Eric was asking how to build successful partnerships. One of an example of partnerships that you have also conducted yourself at Firmenich.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've seen an evolution on the structure of partnerships in the past few years. You know, I'm going to sound like an old lady, but when I wrote my PhD dissertation, late 90s, one was on partnership between multinationals and the United Nations. At the time, they were very much bilateral partnerships. What we see happening a lot now, and where Firmenich is very engaged, are partnerships with that are coalitions. So I'll take the example of OP2B. That's a coalition on biodiversity protection, initiated by 14 companies, very much led by Danone, very strong in the B Corp movement, that engage also governments and NGOs. And we realized that if all of us in our supply chain come together working on regenerative agriculture, for instance, we can really accelerate our impact. Another example is the Toilet Board Coalition, where with Unilever, Kimberly-Clark, and others, we have been working on access to sanitation, the SDG 6. I think the one-to-one partnership, if I may say so, sometimes they require a lot of transaction, a lot of time trying to understand how to work together. I think today we don't maybe have so much time for that, and maybe coalitions with a very strong team in the middle help us go faster and bigger.
Thank you, Barry. Indeed, very strong point that you're making, and differentiating the different types of partnerships and coalitions are things that are evolving more and more, and we see the difference. And the one that you mentioned before, also on the agriculture, taking the coalitions at the whole value chain level in a very similar fashion as Tony Chocolonely also handling the child labor issue at the value chain level. It's interesting because indeed, we can see the evolution, that the actions are broadening the scope. We're not just thinking in silo, we're thinking in an integrated way, and we're taking all the system into perspective when doing that. I can see also a question from the audience for also Barry, that is asking how the new IFRA IOFI Sustainability Charter will help Firmenich contribution to the SDGs. Do you want to answer?
Yeah, certainly. I think, you know, and I don't know who's asking, maybe a colleague, a friend, or somebody from my industry, and thank you for asking. I think it's fundamental that we take an industry approach. I think I said that at the beginning of my talk. You know, if one player in the industry doesn't do the right thing, it's going to impact everybody else negatively in any case, but also because we operate in the same ecosystem. So if together with a charter that inspires your entire industry, brings together the SMEs of the industry, you can really have a huge impact. And in our industry on flavor and fragrances, we reach out to thousands of suppliers around the world, you know, from a small vanilla farmer to a jasmine picker in India. We can transform. So this charter, it took us, you know, really deeply a few years to go through consultations at regional level, bringing together a lot of players, working together also at the Brussels level with great people in our industry association. This is what I was saying around coalitions. But you cannot just come together. A charter helps you guide your you know, basically your North Star in what it is you wanna deliver together.
So that's the format that you were illustrating, but not only the format, the key success factor of a coalition itself, as you were saying, having this charter, not just partnering because we know we will need to partner, but the next step, and that's very interesting insights, what can bind different stakeholders together? How can they successfully collaborate together? You mentioned the charters, we were talking earlier about the mindset, and the intention itself is not enough. It's also about the tools that we're using, the standards that we're implementing. So all those different elements put together hopefully can help us to lead to a system change and to be successful in the collaborations that we're doing.
Exactly.
We have a few minutes left, and I would encourage the audience to actually answer your last interaction and question to understand for this last round that we have in the last minutes we have together. You will see in the chat, you will have a link for the last question to understand what are your main takeaways and how do you feel and what do you bring back with you after this hour and a half together. So go to the link that you've seen already before and is being shared again now, the Book Club SDG Action Manager 2, and leave us your feedback so then we can build up on that. And before, while waiting for all the answers to be shared, and after all this great, insightful discussion that I could try to summarize, but to be honest, you shared so many different things that I do hope that people have their own takeaways. But rather than me summarizing again, may I actually ask each one of you to give some last words? What do you want people to bring back with us from this session? Inzo, do you want to start?
Never think you're too small to make a difference. And seriously, I think, 5-6 years ago, we were a tiny little impact company making a little bit of chocolate. And here we are 5 years later, market leader in the Netherlands and available almost globally. So never think you're too small to make a difference. Because you can wait forever for laws, you can wait forever for initiatives. Just pick up the initiative and go for it yourself.
Thank you, Inzo. So not too small, but also let's get started. From what I understand, what you're saying, let's not wait for the others to act, but let's start at least on our own, and then the others.
It's a personal frustration and annoyance with, well, let me put it diplomatically, with some of our competitors that say we need to have stuff in place. Sure, we need to have stuff in place, but you can take your responsibility today already, right?
Thank you, Inzo. Helen, what are the takeaway that you would leave the audience with?
I think it is about that engagement, and whether that's internal or external, but we need to take everyone along with us and inspire them for action. So I think, a bit like Enzo, no one's too small to make a difference. So, no matter where you are within a company, you can inspire that change. So I think, get out there and inspire that change.
And from what I hear from you, Helen, it's not just about the company, but us as individuals as well. And you were saying that within the company, we can also make a change, right? If I understood correctly what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, at the end of the day, Hitachi, we are one global organization, and we're the sum of our employees, and it's us who drive that culture within Hitachi, with that leadership that we have from the very top. So yeah, if we have that top down and bottom up approach, then I think as an organization we have a really great ability to make significant change and impact.
Thank you, Helen. Noemi, how about it translated in Chiesi, and what is the main takeaway you want the audience to live with?
Well, for me, main takeaways are really acting as a unique force, so both with internal engagement and also with external engagement and partnership, which are really key to achieve these goals, and with a structured plan and being very concrete and pragmatic on these topics.
Thank you, Noemi. We'll try. I think indeed being pragmatic is important because then we get lost on all those complex topics, but also maybe the little progress, step by step, being able to bring that change at the different levels. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. Barry, can I ask you also the same question?
Yeah, I'm going to be terribly down to earth and operational. I would say make sure you go digital as soon as you can in your journey, which means if we all want to prove we really have an impact, we need to work harder on data management, on collecting the right data, on bringing data together, on having common systems. And I think at the moment, the whole world of impact is extremely messy. So if anybody on the line or part of people who are, really genius at developing data management platforms, thinking about how the SDGs can go more digital, and you're doing a great job at B Corp having a tool, but how do we make those tools more integrated into company normal tools, right? How do we link that to financial reporting and so on? So My dream is in 10 years that we would be able to, you know, at a click, be able to generate reports on performance financially, but also sustainability wise. And there's a lot of work and a lot of opportunities for young people to think about it. So go for it.
That's a very interesting call, Barry. And I do hope that entrepreneurs are hearing you, because indeed data is key.
Oh, yeah.
To define KPIs, but also to monitor them and to be able to really set those ambitious targets. We need to understand the impact that we are having. And especially in those multi-complex organizations, it's becoming more and more essential. And it's not just about gathering the data, but what do we make out of the data? How do we make sure also that the data is being used in every decision-making process and step, which is also something that Hitachi is working on. So it's very interesting. And I do hope that we will have more innovative persons that will be hearing and be able to support on that side, but also on the standards themselves. I believe that we need also more, I would say, common grounds and defining what do we call really impact, and bringing, as you were saying earlier, coalitions to bring all of us together to bring system change and agree on common standards in order to then get the data right and be able to measure transparently and to use business as a force for goods with this mindset that will be already there. And we're coming now to the end of the session. Unfortunately, it's already more than an hour and a half that we've been talking together. Thank you so much, all of you, Inzo, Barry, Noemi, Helen. Very happy to have us with you, to have you with us. And I do hope that the audience gathered some really insightful items and topics. And well, just I hope also you enjoy your weekend, that all the week went well. And again, a big thank you to CSR Europe for convening all of us together and making sure that we can talk and give insights based on partnerships to achieve the goals. Thank you.